There
There,
he is.
there he is.
I'm here. How are you?
Hey,
Very
Michael,
nice
how
to
are
see
you?
Let me get to. Good. We're not on the air yet, right?
Yes,
Well, we are, but we could take you off if you
Oh,
want
we
us
are.
to.
No, that's okay. I just want to make sure that we're looking good on this end.
That's
How's
right.
that? Can you guys see me okay?
We can
Yes,
see
sir.
you.
Looks
We can hear
perfect.
you. Yep.
Good, good.
Well, how are you, sir?
Yeah.
I'm good. I'm out here in Southern California, and you guys are in Cleveland, I assume, or close
Yes.
That's
to it.
correct.
Yes, we are.
Looking forward to your
All right.
visit here in
Well,
a couple weeks, man.
yeah, me also. I've been to Cleveland many times and love the city, love the area. I haven't been to Lorraine, but I know it's just outside of Cleveland. I'm sure it's going to be great. We're looking forward to it. June
Yeah,
24th.
Saturday, June 24th at Lorraine Palace Theater. Tickets are still available. You're going to be talking all the mob stuff, which I know is Cleveland has a big history of, mafia and mob related things. I used to work for a guy, Mike Trevisano, and he always wanted to do a mob podcast because he thought it was the most interesting stuff known to man. He was big into Danny Green. He was big into all the stuff going on here in Cleveland, and he'd be honored that I was able to talk to you today. And so I really do appreciate you coming on.
Oh, no problem. Thanks for having me. And, back in the day, in the 70s, my dad was in prison in Leavenworth Penitentiary.
Okay.
And I would visit him, and there were a few guys from Cleveland. I won't mention their name now, that were there that I met. Nice guys. We met in the visiting room. And on two occasions, I had to bring a message back to some of the people in Cleveland. So I did that for them and was always received very well there. And of course, I knew what was going on, through that whole Danny Green situation. I think there were more car bombings in that area than anywhere else in the country, for sure. So it's got a rich history. Cleveland, they were legit, back in the day.
Michael, when you think back to that time, how intertwined was the knowledge of what everybody else was doing? I mean, you obviously were in the Colombo family, so you knew what was going on there. But how much did you know about what was going on with the other families, or in Kansas City, here in Cleveland, with the other outfits that were going on?
Well, New York was really the stronghold because we had the most members. We had five families back there. So a lot of what was going on in the country was reported back to New York. And of course, you had the commission, and people on the commission, would all get together. So, I heard a lot only because I was pretty close to my boss at that time. I was a capo regime. And, so we knew what was going on, maybe not intimately, certainly not the day-to-day goings on, but we knew the status of things as they occurred in each city.
Did you know more or less than other people because you were an earner yourself? I mean, your primary claim to fame, for people that don't know, was that you made billions of dollars yourself for the mob. So would you pay attention to what other people were doing, or were you so consumed by what you were doing to generate income that you really didn't focus so much on, the Danny Greens of the world?
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't think any of us in New York really focused on what was going outside of our city unless we had business there.
Okay.
And so my primary concern was obviously what I was doing with my crew and within my family. But you hear things because it's one big organization, different families, but we all live by the same code, the same set of rules. So to a degree, what was going on, but obviously you're more focused on what's going on in your life and your crew and your town.
Right.
What was that code like? I mean, what was the code between you guys?
Well, the fallacy, I think, among many people is that when we take the oath, like I took mine Halloween night, 1975, when we take that oath, that we're taking an oath to lie, steal, kill, cheat, and that's not it at all. Now, obviously, we're criminals. I'm not going to say that things like that didn't occur. But the oath we take is an oath of omerta, which means silence, meaning that we're not even supposed to admit the existence of that life. Now, obviously, many of us have broken that rule, and I don't think even guys that take it at the time we're taking it don't understand the real meaning of it. They were not even supposed to admit it exists. And of course, people like, within the life, like Gotti and Colombo and guys like that, obviously got caught on tape and they talked about it and boasted about it. And certainly I've spoken about it, after that life. Um, but that means something when you're taking the oath. But obviously, it's been violated, time and time and time again. And I think that's a leading contributor to the decline in that life across the country.
Right.
Now, well, how great was that life, though? I mean, you guys ran things. You guys, I mean, to me, I know movies and stuff like that glorify it, but to me, it seems like kind of a cool kind of an existence. But was it or not?
Well, you need to understand something. For nearly 100 years, the mafia in this country had tremendous control and tremendous authority. I mean, I always say the golden years of that life were really from the late 40s into the mid 80s when the racketeering laws started to devastate, the life all over the country. But prior to that time, I mean, we controlled all the unions in this country. We controlled the Teamsters Union, 2.5 million members, multi-billion-dollar pension funds. When you have votes and you have money, you can control politics to a degree because what do politicians want? They want votes and they want money. So if you can provide that for him, it gives you a lot of power. You call a strike of the Teamsters Union, you stop all those trucks going all over the country delivering goods. The same with the docks. We controlled the seaports. So we had tremendous authority, tremendous power at one time, right into the White House. And that's the truth. So it was a big deal. It's part of the history of America. Now, in saying that, I'm not trying to glorify the life because I had a pretty good run, but there's also a difficult side to that life, obviously. I mean, there's a lot of treachery. I always say it's an evil lifestyle. And I want to be clear, I'm not calling the guys evil. I was part of that at one time. I just happened to be very fortunate to be out of it. But the reason I call it evil is because I don't know of any family, of any member of that life that hasn't been totally devastated, including my own, not my wife and kids, but my own family, devastated. And any lifestyle that, contributes to a family's devastation is not a good lifestyle. So, and I've been very clear in indicating that over the years. But while I was there, hey, can I complain? I mean, we were bringing in $8-10 million a week in my gasoline tax operation. I had, 300 guys under me. I had my own jet plane, my own helicopter. I had houses in LA, Florida, and New York City. So I had a good run. But at the same time, I had 18 arrests. I had 7 indictments, including 2 federal racketeering cases. I went to trial 5 times. I ended up doing 8 years in prison, paying a $15 million restitution and $5 million in forfeiture of my assets. So, you take the good with the bad.
Right. Yes. Now, the sad part is, you mentioned the government. The government has almost pushed the mafia out and became the mafia themselves. I mean, that's what the government today seems to be like. And in my opinion, anyways, is that any truth to that?
Well, listen, to take it a step further, I recently wrote a book called A Mafia Democracy. And because I can see the way they're operating very Machiavellian, just like we did on the street. I have never, ever seen. Look, I always knew that there was corruption in the FBI and that people got framed. I experienced certain things. I have never seen the level of corruption in our political system as I'm seeing now. I'm very frightened for the direction this country is. Not for me, not for me. I mean, I'm 72 years old, but I have 7 children. I have 6 grandchildren. I think the future of this country is really in jeopardy with current leadership and the direction that it's going in. The FBI is being weaponized to go after political opponents.
Right.
We see nothing but lies out of the White House, and I'm not going Republican or Democrat. I mean, my book is non-biased. It's right down the line. It's the system that we're seeing that's been created that's very frightening. To be quite honest with you, very frightening.
When you look at today, Michael, and I'm gonna say this, it's gonna sound weird, and tell me that it's just stupid. I know you're not advocating in any way for the mafia lifestyle to come back, but would it not be better if there was just a little bit of it? And what I mean by a little bit of it specifically is, like, as one example, the way the streets were run. You know, there was respect. There was respect for the elders. You didn't disrespect your elders. You didn't disrespect certain people in the neighborhood. You treated your neighborhood well. Where now it just seems like there's no respect for anything, not laws, not people, not anything right now, which I think is a major cause of the chaos outside of the political realm. Just day-to-day city life could use a little busting heads to straighten things up, no?
Let me tell you something. It's like the Wild West out there. In our neighborhoods, there was no crime. No crime. Why
Right.
did people in the neighborhood love John Gotti? Because John protected the neighborhood. Same thing in our neighborhood in Greenpoint, you know, where I grew up in Brooklyn. In all of our neighborhoods, we didn't tolerate people abusing people within our communities and our neighborhoods. And what's going on now, we wouldn't have tolerated that anyway. I mean, anyhow, you're not going to come into our neighborhood and go into our, you know, supermarket and steal $900 worth of goods and walk out of the store. We wouldn't allow that. We wouldn't allow
Right.
that. That's petty nonsense. That's going on in California in a big way. You know, something so insane. They just passed a law in California where it's illegal for a store employee to stop somebody that's stealing merchandise from their store. Now, you know, maybe they're trying to protect them because, you know, they can get hurt. But it's crazy. You're allowing criminals to come in and commit crimes. I've never seen anything like this in my life. But yes, I think that we would do a much better job of protecting our neighborhoods if we were still in you know, the same power that we had back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. No doubt about it.
A lot of people talk about being a made man, and you were a made man. How does somebody become a made man?
Well, look, there's a process. You know, first of all, somebody has to, you know, promote you for the job. I mean, my dad was the one who you know, sent word downtown and said, "I want my son to become a made member of that life." You can't just go up to somebody and say, "Hey, I'd like to be, you know, I'd like to join. How do I do that?"
Right.
Somebody has to vouch for you. They have to say you have what it takes. In my case, it was my father. And then what happens is I sat down with the boss at the time, the acting boss, and he said, "Mike, I heard you want to become a member of our life. Is that true?" I said, "Yes. Here's the deal. From now on, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, you're on call to serve this family, the Colombo family. That means if your mother is sick and dying, you're at her bedside, we call you to service. You leave your mother, you come and serve us. From now on, we're number one in your life before anything and everything. When and if we feel you deserve this privilege, this honor to be a member, we'll let you know." That was the exact speech that I got. And then you're on call. You're a recruit at that time, and it's on the job training. You got to do anything and everything you're told to do to prove yourself worthy. You got to observe a lot. You got to absorb things like a sponge, so you really get to understand what the life is all about, what the rules mean, what the policies mean, what you can do and what you can't do. And then when and if they feel you're ready, well, then your night comes. And that's what happens. For me, it was Halloween night, 1975.
Interesting. Michael, let me ask you about a couple of people back in mafia history and what you think of them. First one that always fascinates me, just because the guy has lied so much that I cannot figure out what's true and what's not. Richard Kuklinski, the Iceman, was he really an involved guy with the mob? Was he a peripheral guy? Was he involved with the Jimmy Hoffa stuff, as he has said or did say? What was his involvement or role with the mafia?
Okay, yeah, very much embellished, especially in the movie that they did, The Iceman. He did not work as closely with Roy DeMeo and his crew. That was fabricated. It was embellished to a high degree. I knew Roy pretty well. I never really heard Kuklinski's name coming up. I think DeMeo might have mentioned it once to me, but it was highly embellished. And, you know, he talked a lot said a lot of things that weren't true. So no, you got to understand something. In that life, when you're a made guy, it's your responsibility to take care of business for the family. Rarely
Mhm.
do we go outside of that for obvious reasons. I mean, we don't want to, jeopardize ourselves by putting our fate in someone else's hand, especially something as serious as murder. So you don't do that. You know, when you're required when you take that oath to do whatever you're told to do. So that was highly embellished. Trust me
Okay.
on that.
All right. And the other one I wanted to ask you about, and I read this somewhere. I read that you met Don King at one point through an introduction from Al Sharpton. What kind of ties did Al Sharpton have to the mob?
Well, Al Sharpton's ties to the mob were really me and another
Okay.
guy by name, yeah, Danny Pagano, who was another guy in New York. And, Al Sharpton, quite honestly, he was a gun for hire back then. He would bring us clients from music industry that we had. I had connections with Spring Records, who was a company at that time. I also had somebody I was close with, Norby Walters, that represented a lot of the major black acts at the time. And we would pay Al Sharpton to bring people to us. I also used Al Sharpton, was myself and uh, another gentleman. We used him when we were trying to unionize for bartenders and waitresses and the security guards in Atlantic City. We were trying to unionize the hotels, so we used Sharpton to bring people to work on the picket lines for us. He was a gun for hire. That's
Okay.
basically what he was, and he didn't really make the introduction to Don King for me. I just used him as an intermediary at the time
Okay.
because there was a big undercover investigation on myself and Don, and he and I were both the targets of that investigation.
What
Didn't
was
go anywhere.
prison?
Fortunately.
What was prison like? You went to prison, I think, in '86, and then you got out in '94, I believe, something like that. Well, what was that
Yeah.
like? I mean, after living that kind of lifestyle and then being locked up? Was there any? What was that like
Well,
for you?
listen, I mean, I had visited my father just about all my life, so it wasn't that I was a stranger to prison, and I certainly was arrested several times, spent, a few nights there on and off. Um, Look, it's like anything else. You got to make your way in there. It's not pleasant when anybody takes your freedom away. The worst part for me is I did 29 months and 7 days in solitary confinement, 6 by 8 cell, 24/7. That was rough. I'm going to be honest with you. I learned through that experience we weren't meant to be kept in isolation. It's a rough deal. A lot of guys, when those lights went out at night, they didn't do well. A lot of moaning, groaning. I saw a lot of bad stuff happen during that time with guys that just couldn't handle it. So that was a rough time. 29 months especially. That's a long time to be left in solitary. But I got through it, and I'm okay. I mean, but would I want to repeat it? Absolutely not. Your freedom is very, very precious, people. Let me tell you, it's really precious.
So, was it in prison that you became like kind of a born again Christian, found
Yeah,
faith?
I mean, yes. I mean, my wife, was Christian. My mother-in-law was. I mean, she was young when I met her. My wife was only 20, but she was a devout Christian, as was my mother-in-law. But was really when I was in solitary that I did my research, guys. To me, I didn't get struck with a lightning bolt, and nobody spoke to me out of heaven, and I didn't get any visions in my sleep. It was really all about me researching different faiths for almost 3 years and coming up with the conclusion that Christianity was really the way to go. And that's that's how it started for me, and how it's resumed over the past 25 years. It's only become stronger.
Somebody
Was
said
that
Don
what?
King. Somebody said Don King ran the numbers in Cleveland in the '70s and '80s. Is that true?
Yes. Well,
There you go.
I don't
Simple
know if
enough.
he ran the numbers, but I know he ran numbers.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah.
Going back to the prison time, Michael, was your finding of faith what made you decide that you were going to try to leave the mafia, or was there a specific event where somebody got wronged, somebody got killed, something happened that led you to say, you know what, I've got to get out of this lifestyle, even if it kills me to get out of it?
No, let me. It's a good question. I'm glad you brought that up. when I left the life, I wasn't mad at anybody. Didn't want to get even with anybody. I wasn't a guy that said, "Oh, they did me wrong." Look, when you get involved in that life, you understand what it is. There's a lot of treachery in that life. There is backstabbing. There is envy. It's probably to a greater degree than maybe you see in corporate America. Maybe not, but it's obviously intensified because the consequences could be more severe. So you got to really you got to walk the line. You got the government on one side looking to take you down. You got guys within the family that you got to be careful of. But that's the life. You sign up for that. You get it. You understand it. You know, what really got to me, I met this young girl. She was 20 years old. I fell in love with her. And like I said, I, I seen what was happening with the racketeering laws. Everybody was going away from hundreds of years, 50 years, 70 years. I was one of the youngest guys out of all of them. And I was a major target. I mean, I beat them 5 times. I knew if I went down once, my life was going to be over.
Mm-hmm.
They were going to give me 100 years, like they gave the commission guys. So, and then I fall in love with this girl, and I said, am I going to marry her, stay in this life, and she's going to be either a widow or I'm going to go off to prison for the rest of my life? Because there's no way I'm going to escape it. I'm too big a target at this point. It's going to happen. You're going to go down. So my original thought while getting away was really for preservation. I said, let me get out of here while I can. I beat them. Let me take some time in prison. I'll pay them some money. I'll marry this girl, move out to California. Maybe these guys will forget about me. So that was it initially. But my faith developed in the whole because it was a very tough time for me. And I just said, let me see if there's reality. Because you know what, people, it's good to have a healthy fear of things that are bad for you. So while I'm in the hole, I'm saying if I'm going to spend the rest of my life here, because the feds were upset with me, I wouldn't cooperate. And they claimed they were going to try to give me more time and bury me. And it was a long thing, too much to go into now. I'll go into it on June 24th more. But I said, you know, if this is it, if there is life after death, I want to see if it's real or if I'm kidding myself. And that's what really got me into a real search for the truth with respect to religion and faith. I read over 300 books. I had my wife send me in books on every single faith. And I really digested it and I really went through it. And I listened to certain radio shows, different faiths online. I had a Sony Walkman. So I just came out of there a real believer based upon the evidence and my research. And like I said, in the past 25 years, it's only gotten stronger for me, seeing what God has done in my life and what I've seen he's done in other people's lives. So it worked for me, you know, and I share it now all over the world. I don't push it on anybody. I don't try to impose my faith on anybody. I don't try to turn anybody into a Christian. I can't do that. But I can share what I believe God has done in my life, and that's what it's all about.
Saturday, June 24th. You're going to be there 7 p.m. Lorraine Palace Theater. People can get tickets for that. Go ahead, Chris.
I was just going to ask, when you made that decision, when you turned your life over to God, when you made the decision that you were going to leave the mafia, what were you scared? I guess is the obvious question. Were you scared, and what were you scared of? Were you scared of spiritual stuff? Were you scared of the guys that you were turning your back on and the oath that you were turning your back on? What would you have been scared of if you were scared at all?
Well, again, man, I really appreciate the questions you're asking. I mean that. You know, it wasn't fear, because when I was in that life for 20 plus years, you live not in a constant state of fear, but you live in a constant state of awareness that at any time, if you make a mistake, somebody can pounce on you. You know, one of the horrors of that life is you make a mistake, your best friend walks you into a room, you don't walk out again. And I had an experience where I was walked into a room. It made me realize that I could face death because I didn't cut and run. And obviously over my 20 years, I know of people that were walked into a room and didn't walk out again. So, you know, you have that awareness. Now, when I left the life, I said, okay, they're never going to walk me into a room. They're going to have to work to get me. I knew the lifestyle extremely well. So when I moved out to California, I changed my whole lifestyle. I didn't create patterns in my life. I didn't walk my dog every morning at 7. I didn't go to the same restaurant every Tuesday. I stayed out of nightclubs. I was very disciplined in conducting my life so that if somebody was after me, I would be aware of it, or they'd have a tough time. Because it's one thing to walk you in a room in New York. It's another thing to send a hit squad across the country and try to kill somebody and then get away with it. Because you go away, you go, especially somebody that's aware of it.
Right.
So, that's the practical side. So I wasn't afraid, but I was extremely aware. Somebody asked me, I was at an event the other day, and somebody said to me, Michael, when did the fear or the awareness of your surroundings ever go away? And I said, well, maybe that'll happen tomorrow, because it hasn't gone away. I said, when I walk down the street with my wife, I'm always looking around. When I go into a place, I always case it out it's just natural. I can't help it. If I see somebody shady, I'm aware of it. So it's instinct for me, but again, and it wasn't I did gain a very healthy fear of hell. In the Christian Bible, God speaks about hell more than he does about heaven. And I said, if that's a real place, I'm in here 29 months and 7 days. If this was what hell is like, but a million times worse, I don't want any part of it. So it motivated me to learn about faith, because I said, I think there's got to be more to life than just death and it's over. It doesn't make sense to me. I believe in intelligent design. I believe in creation. I believe there has to be something more. So when you believe that, well, then you want to know, what do you do to get to the right place and not the wrong place? So I think all those factors contributed to where I am right now. And hopefully, I believe with all my heart, I'm in the right place, and we'll see. I'm not perfect, that's for sure. Let me tell you this, guys. You can take the boy out of Brooklyn. You can't always take Brooklyn out of the boy. I still have a lot of tendencies, but I found out 2 things in life. Number one, you are who you hang out with. You're hanging out with the wrong crowd, get away from it, because they're going to take you down, and you deserve it at that point. Number 2, the path that you're going to follow in life is in accordance with who you're accountable to. When I was on the street, I was accountable to my oath, to my boss. I was a criminal. Now I'm accountable to God first, my wife, my children. I don't want to mess up. I don't want to screw up. A lot of people trust and believe in me. I don't want to let them down. So accountability plays a major role in your life as far as the direction you're going to take, the path you're going to take.
Definitely. Now, Michael, just one last question about the old days, I guess, and it's more now, looking back at the old days. I mean, for people that don't know, you were a member of the Colombo family, and obviously one of the 5 families. When you look back at it now, how do you think that the Colombos fit in the pecking order? Were they the top, the middle, the bottom of the 5 families, or what? Do you just not see it that way? You just see it as individual families that were doing individual things, or how do you see it as somebody that A, has observed it since you left, but B, also observed it from right inside it?
Well, listen, I'll answer that question in accordance with the 5 families in New York. The Genovese and the Gambino families were bigger than, they were twice the size of us. We had 115 made guys at the time in the Colombo family. Colombo's, Bonanos, Lucchese's were smaller. Genovese and Gambinos were bigger. And I think over the course of, I think they were more profitable. They were bigger revenue producers. I would say that. I went to my boss, Carmine Persco, at time, and I said, why do we only have 115 guys and these guys are double us? And he answered me, Michael, we go for quality, not quantity. I didn't quite get that either, but, that was his response to that. But, the unfortunate thing is our family was at war quite a bit. We had 3 major wars in our family throughout my lifetime. The other families didn't really experience that. So we were devastated in that regard. But I will say this, when I got into the gas business and we were producing $8, $9, $10 million a week, that was a big uplift to the family at that time. But I guess in the pecking order, we would be middle of the pack. We would be, Bonanos, Lucchese's and us, and then Gambino and Genovese would have been on top of us as far as numbers, and I think revenue producers also.
Was your time, your specific time when you were hitting the hardest with the gas thing, when it was making the most money it was making, was that the most money any family in the mob ever made?
You know, I think they have said, and I've my own analysis of this, because I was a pretty active guy. I was around a lot of the families because when you're making that kind of money, you make a lot of friends, right?
Sure.
And I don't know really since the days of prohibition that we were making that kind of money. I mean, we were bringing in $8-10 million a week. It's a lot of money. I don't think
Yeah.
anybody else was doing that. And remember this: we weren't big drug dealers. We were not. We're not. We weren't compared to the cartels in any way, shape, or form. We didn't generate money like that from drugs. We were not supposed to be involved in drugs. The night it got made, they said, Franzese, you do drugs, you die. And I know guys that died because of their small drug dealings. And if you remember, Castellano allegedly was going to kill Gotti and his crew because they were dealing in drugs. So we weren't supposed to deal in drugs. So I would think that we had quite a significant earning. I don't know if anybody else was earning that kind of money at that time, to be quite honest.
You and Sammy the Bull had some heated words. Are you guys square now?
We're square. Yeah. I mean, look, Sammy's he's a character for sure, but I got to like him. I like his family. You know, we had some differences back and forth, but we're square now. We're friends now, and we try to help each other out when we can.
Well, I know that you're recording a YouTube, you're part of your YouTube videos today, so I appreciate you taking the time. Where can people see the? I mean, obviously you can see it on YouTube. It's a bi-weekly series that you do, right, on YouTube?
Yeah, well, they would love for me to do it every day, but I just can't bring myself to do that. My team is always on me, content, but it's all I do now. You know, it's funny, guys. At one time I said I would never wear a wire. Now I got one on almost every day, you know, producing some kind of content. But
Well,
I want to tell you that before you go, I wanted to say this, you know, I did something on the city of Cleveland and the mob a couple of months back. And we got such a tremendous response from people in the neighborhood, Cleveland and the surrounding areas. They've been helping promote the show. They've invited me to eat with them at different restaurants. I'm probably going to go visit Little Italy for a bit. The people have been so warm and welcoming. I really want to thank everybody from the city. Just thank you for the reception that I've been getting. I know we're going to have a good time on June 24th. We always do. It's going to be a good one.
Yeah, June 24th, 7 o'clock, Lorraine Palace Theater. You can still get tickets, man. I think this is going to be a hell of a night, to be honest.
Oh, yeah.
Very interesting stuff.
And real quick, Michael, if you really need content, we'd be happy to give you this video if you want to put it on your channel that gets 1 million hits a day or whatever.
Yeah, that'd be great. I mean, send it over when you guys finish with it. Are we live now? We're live.
We are, yeah.
Oh, yeah. We are live.
Yeah.
But we've got your email. We'll send it over. We definitely will.
Send it over. We'll put it up there. And I mean this sincerely. I'm not blowing smoke. You know, I do a lot of these interviews, and a lot of times it's just everything the same. You guys ask really good questions, and I appreciate that because you give me an opportunity to say things that, you know, normally don't come out. So thank you.
Well, thank you. We appreciate
and there'll be more
time.
of it on the 24th, right? More of the things that don't normally come out.
Yes.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I'm saving a few good ones for that night.
There we go. Awesome.
We appreciate the time, sir. Thank you. And hope we'll see you on the 24th.
We'll see you on the 24th.
Well, you're certainly invited, so I hope you show up. And, you know, we do a VIP thing, too. We take photos. We sign books. We do a Q&A, and that's always the best part because people really unload their questions, and I answer everything.
Great.
We have a good time with it, so hope to see you then.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Michael.
Bye-bye.
All right, guys. Take care. Bye-bye now.
Bye. That was awesome. That was cool.
That was really good. Wow.
I thoroughly enjoyed that.
Me too. I'm like over here, like, I don't usually get like nervous about interviews. Never. Like, no matter who it is, you know, and I've interviewed some big people, you know, Metallica and Ozzy and, you know, big musical people. I don't usually get nervous. I was very nervous about this just because I'm such a mob fan.
The thing that kind of sucks is that I know that I had a ton more questions.
Me too.
You did too. But he only had a certain amount of time because he's filming his YouTube series today. And So we only had a certain amount of time, but I want to thank him for coming on.
And he
get
came
those
on early
tickets.
too, so that was
Yeah.
great.
June 24th, Saturday night, 7:00. I think it's going to be a very good time.
I think so too. I think it's going to be
there.
fantastic. I'm definitely. I already told Neely that I may be late and or not available on Classic Metal Show that night.
Yeah.
Meeting a mobster outweighs anything else I do.
Yeah, I think that's going to be very, very cool.
Absolutely.
I want to thank Marie though for hooking me up with that interview. She's a fan, and she wanted me.
That
to
was
do
great.
It was fantastic. So
so good. Very, very happy with that one. I'm glad he didn't have internet problems, and we didn't have internet problems, and it just went off well. And boy, that guy has a zillion videos out there of him being interviewed, and for him to say that ours is one of the best he's done,
I'll take it.
I'll take that any day of the week.
We need to pull that quote and start every show with it,
Yeah.
and send it to everybody.
Exactly. Well, and no kidding, I will send this video to him.
Yeah, and no kidding, I'm going to find out about us going to that show because I
Hell
want to
yes.
be there and meet that man.
I want to go too.
One of my goals in doing this was to make Triv proud too, because I know that
Sure.
this guest would have been something that Triv would have loved,
Mm-hmm.
and so I was very excited to have him on. So
Too fun.